Welcome to our second episode of the story of every man. Let's talk about the anatomy of motivation.
I feel like Chris can start this off. I think he's been in positions in his life that have given him a lot of motivation. I know that your wife went through breast cancer.
Yeah.
And so, how did that motivate you? And can you break that down for us?
Yeah, I think motivation in itself is kind of fragile. You know, it can be influenced easily to do better or to do worse. But specifically for what my wife went through and me helping her, my motivation was just seeing her resilience. You know, when you see someone go from being at their peak performance to undergoing chemo treatment,
Right.
and just seeing the toll that takes on your body, and they still show up every day to, be
Yes.
mom, be wife, be a good friend.
Yeah.
That motivated me. Like, if she can do what she's doing, then there's no excuse to me not doing the things that I have to do and that I want to do in life.
It helped you in those days, huh? In those days where
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Just like I said, seeing her resilience, seeing her will to not give in to her circumstance, that motivated me, not only in that moment, but for anything that I face.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's great. That's
awesome.
I mean, I can't even imagine
Yeah.
those conversations at times in your house where you're like, where you as a healthy person are like, man, I'm just tired, and you're like, she's still kicking. I got to get up
Yeah.
and do something.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, and that's the same with probably all families or couples who've experienced something like that. You know, I think it motivates your family, your relationships, and it just brings you to a whole nother level of appreciation
Right.
for,
Yeah.
for that individual.
What would you tell a couple that's struggling with motivation in a similar situation where one has to deal with cancer or some sort of illness, and the other's like, man, this is tough, and I'm questioning, my ability to go through it with her or him.
For us, it was our faith. You know,
That's
I
right.
couldn't imagine going through something like that and not having your faith to rely on. You know, that's something me and my wife talked about a lot. Like, we have our faith, we have our church community to kind of lean into.
Yeah.
So I encourage anyone who is going through something like that to find a base. You know, find your connect group. If it's a church, if it's your family, just lean into that, because you can't do it alone, and you weren't meant to.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
You
Sure.
weren't meant to do it alone. So
You feel like they did a good job in maintaining contact with you? The church,
absolutely,
and
absolutely,
kind of helping you through it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I feel like, too, like, motivation is so simple. I feel like it's the need,
Yeah.
the drive, and then setting goals. And obviously, motivation is an action word.
Absolutely.
And so I think for me, it's simple. It's like, do you want it? Like, how bad do you want it?
I love that statement. I hear that statement.
No.
It's that statement is a driving
It's super
statement.
easy.
Yeah.
Like, if you're motivated about something and you want it, you're
Yeah.
going to set goals. You're going to go for it.
Are you pretty competitive?
Okay, yes. That is where I get my motivation. I don't even want to know what it's going to be like for my 3-year-old to play soccer this year.
Oh boy.
But yeah, I get a lot of my motivation from competing and being competitive. I know everybody kind of gets their motivation from other places, but I'm like, at the daycare, we do like a door competition for Christmas, and I get super competitive, and I don't even have a door. I just find a wall, a little. All I need is a little piece of wall, and I'm gonna tear all of you guys up.
So how do you cope when you don't win? There you go.
Like I said last week, because I'm a good person.
Yeah.
I'm not sour.
Yeah.
I just take my loss and come back harder.
That's awesome. Makes you work
Set
harder.
better goals, you know.
When we talk about motivation, for me, it's getting to a certain place. Like, for me, it's the journey to get there, and not necessarily the goal, like achieving that goal.
Yeah.
Man, I've done a lot of fitness stuff throughout my life, and I just enjoy getting through it and motivating others. So I started training for multi-sport and doing Spartan races, and
Yeah, I saw that.
one person asked me just out of the blue, hey, do you want to work out, or can I work out with you?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, sure. And it went from there to, like, I was training a whole group of people. Eventually that gym asked me to become a teacher, because I had literally like a class of people training with me. I think for me, motivation translates into influence a little bit, or what's the other
Yeah.
word I'm looking for?
It's also, like I said, like it's the need.
Yeah.
You needed to work out.
Yeah.
And then you had that drive.
Yes.
And, and then you probably set goals.
Yeah. I love
So-
seeing the drive in others. I love
I love
seeing
the drive.
in others
Yeah.
gives me even a harder drive.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I need to work harder.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
People would work out.
Competitiveness.
Yeah. They would work their butts out off just for the workout, just
Oh,
for
yeah.
the session. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's insane.
A lot of people don't realize, but the two largest mental health problems in America are both related to motivation, depression and ADHD. So both of those, you have a problem with dopamine.
Yeah.
Dopamine is it's the chemical that is motivation.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that reward chemical in your brain, you're just not motivated.
Right. Right.
So a lot of people find mechanisms to, self-medicate on dopamine.
Some of those being social media, like really, just
Everything.
Yeah.
Like every aspect of our life is related to how we're going to get more dopamine.
right.
Everything
That's
we do
true.
in our day-to-day lives is about dopamine.
One of the researches that I looked at here recently was they were saying that not necessarily is the goal the dopamine, that we're not trying to get the dopamine from the goal, but some of us have dopamine in the drive, like getting there.
Yeah.
That dopamine, like so if you were to take all the dopamine out of all the goals, we would still do it because the drive
The
to get
Yeah.
process.
The
is there.
process.
Yeah. And like as an example, the game Candy Crush, it's like the highest grossing app of all time.
Yeah.
And the thing that they figured out in Candy Crush was the way that you get people to spend more money and come back for more and more games is by, giving them this anticipation that like, hey, you just need to get to that next level. You just
Yeah.
need to,
That's
once you get to that next level, you're going to finally like reach this pinnacle.
Right.
And by finding a way to constantly convince people that there's just one more level up that they need to get and never running
Yeah.
out of levels though to actually achieve.
Yeah.
People just keep playing it forever thinking that they're going to get to some level that's going to make them happy. And
and
almost everything in life is like that too. It's like
Yeah.
you think that you're going to be in this relationship and then you're finally going to be happy, or you're going to get this job and you're finally going to be happy. And then when you get there, it doesn't really like fulfill you. It's like you start looking for that next thing
Yeah.
that's going to
You
give
need
you.
more.
And I go back to that other study where people expect like that big dopamine dump when they get there
Yeah.
at that level, and it's not. It's the whole dopamine
It's the
deal
process.
was the
Yeah.
process getting
Yeah.
there, and then they're like, okay, so then they move that level up, and like,
Yeah.
all right, we can do it, and it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
It's
So
insane.
it's all about the chase. It's not actually about getting there,
Yeah. A lot of our problems in terms of social culture is, learning to like really control what we want in terms of how much dopamine we get out of certain things, and
Yeah.
when we set goals, how we're trying to get there and what our expectations are. Because if our expectations are up there and we're let down, we're going to continue to drive to something that doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's familiar with about the current relationship issues. Like, both
Oh,
men
yeah,
and
we'll
women
have
have
to.
these
We'll have to.
expectations,
Yeah.
and they don't like that partner doesn't meet them, and we're in such a culture where I'm just going to
Yeah.
break your heart and go look for something else.
With dopamine. So the interesting thing with all of this is it has to do with intrinsic versus extrinsic sources of dopamine, and with people with a more neurotypical brain, like normal people, they have an internal reward system that's much more efficient.
Yeah.
So the way that it works is, you have an idea about what you need to do or what you need to accomplish.
Yeah.
And you reward yourself internally when you take the steps to achieve that thing that
Yeah.
you want. And with people who have ADHD or depression or those sorts of things, the issue is that you're not actually able to give yourself those little hits of dopamine, and you become completely reliant on outside sources of dopamine.
Right.
So instead of, hitting these milestones that you need to move forward in life, instead you just need that next hit of dopamine from adrenaline or a relationship, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's one of the major distinctions between a more neurotypical type brain and somebody who has problems regulating their dopamine.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Like people that are keen to doing those other things don't have that internal regulation to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what makes us different, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what makes us
Mhm.
different.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot about like the positive aspect of motivation, but is anyone else here motivated like in spite? Right? Not necessarily that I want this, but because you said I couldn't have it, or because you said I couldn't be this person,
Yeah.
I'm even more motivated now to be this person, especially when you have a past and everyone's like, this is who you are.
If I was in a situation where, I wasn't a good person and a lot of people didn't like me, and that would motivate me to be
Yeah.
a better person,
Okay.
to set out and set sail and do big things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would have major goals. Absolutely. If I had, there's a lot of people out there that, could dislike you, and you're in that situation and you just don't care about them,
Yeah.
or about their opinions.
Yeah. And so what happens? So I can see the dopamine drop in terms of you going through that journey of doing, like, I'm gonna do what people say I couldn't do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when you hit that? Like,
That's with everything, though.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna relate this to my social group. People told me when I first started it, you're trash. You're never gonna get it to be where it used to be, and it is surpassed what it was. And everybody who was all of the naysayers, they have dwindled away. Like there's
Right.
they don't exist anymore, and it's doing great. And so some of the dopamine was the drive. It's like, I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna
Mhm.
like. You're just gonna sit on the sideline and watch.
Yeah.
Would you say those naysayers motivated you to prove them wrong?
They really didn't affect me. They were there, and I think they affected themselves negatively because I just didn't respond to them. I didn't give them, any of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can see how people would be. I felt good when I met the goals that they said I would not meet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact,
Sure.
I'll give you one example. Somebody said, you're never going to reach 7,000 members. Just an example, just a number. They said that in a comment somewhere. So you know what I did? When I hit that number, I went to that comment and I put a smiley face. And that's it. Never said anything else.
Yeah.
And then they get mad.
Yep.
They start cussing me out and stuff. I think that we'll close there. Chris, the last episode, I did ask the other two if you could give humanity any advice, what would it be?
Wow. That's a heavy question.
Yes, sir.
Love your neighbor.
Okay. Good. I love
That's
it.
great.
Love your
Simple
neighbor.
and strong.
Yep.
Simple and strong. Well, we're going to close that. We encourage everybody to have fun, keep growing the community, keep loving the community, keep giving back.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week on The Story of Every Man.